Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Margaret Gordon. I am a training and implementation specialist at Therap Services. I'm excited to welcome you guys to our letter module webinar today. So happy to have you guys with me. I am joined by my colleague Katie, who is going to be monitoring the chats, any questions that you guys have. So do feel free to chime in with any questions, comments. We are happy to answer those, provide any feedback. Just so you all know, you are in a muted only status. So certainly we'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to put in those questions or in the chat window. We are happy to hear from you, answer any questions that we can. All right, so prior to getting started here, I am going to go ahead and share my screen. So give me just one moment here. Okay, great. You should be seeing my disclaimer slide. Katie, will you just confirm that you guys are seeing that for me?
Yep, we can see it.
Awesome, thank you. So I'm just going to give everybody just a moment or two, read through this disclaimer, and then we will jump on into the letter module. Okay, great. So at this time, I am going to hop into a demonstration account. So all the information within this account is fictitious information, or no concerns of any HIPAA breaches or things like that, all fictitious. So just to give you guys some background on the letter module, this module allows users to create templates and different letters for individuals and other users with access to individuals. So we'll go over some different examples of things you might utilize the letter module for. And you do have the ability to generate these letters on the templates as a PDF or Word document, and also indicate that they have been sent to the people that they need to be sent to. So jumping on in, let's discuss some of the roles associated with this module. So first and foremost, I am going to hop on into my user privileges and manage. And I'm going to pull up my name here. I want to make sure I have access to one of the user privileges for the letter module. So under administrative roles over here, you'll see I have this letter template. So this gives me access to create those letter templates and access any existing letter templates that are in the system. And we'll go over what that's like to create some of those, take a look at any existing letter templates in the system. So user privileges, under administrative roles, we have that letter template. In addition to this role, I do want to point out just another one. I'm going to go back to my dashboard. And I'm going to hop on into a super role here. So I'm going to go into super role and manage. I'm just going to go into this all roles section here. These, of course, are all of our modules listed in alphabetical order. So I want to make sure I am finding that letter module, and there it is right here. So this allows users access to that letter module so that they can go in, mark a letter as sent, put in those letters for different individuals. So you can separate out those roles in regards to the templates versus the letters themselves. So did want to make you aware of these two roles here. And of course, if you make any changes, do make sure you are clicking that save in that bottom right corner. Back on my dashboard, I do want to show you some provider preferences that you have access to in regards to this module. So I'm going to hop into my preferences here. You do have the ability to put in some letterhead down here at the bottom. So I'm going to put that in here. There is a note when you are putting in this letterhead. And one thing to note is that it has to be in this JPEG format. And I know most of the time, potentially the letterhead that I had on my, in my documents was just like a PDF or a Word document. So I just did a quick Google search about how to turn a Word document or a PDF into an image. And one thing that they recommended is you can certainly take a screenshot of it and save it that way, or you can basically paste the letterhead into a new document and right click and save it as a picture. So that's just one thing to note, is this does have to be in that JPEG format. And again, I just did a quick Google search about how to turn a Word document or a PDF into a JPEG. So do have that option should you need to just reference how to do that. So I'm just going to add in my header here. And of course, this choose file is just browsing from the files in my computer here. So I'm just going to look for the letterhead, and I see here's that footer, and I want to make sure I have that letterhead. So I'm going to open that up and upload that image. And there's my letterhead. Certainly I can add and remove this as needed. And I'll do the same thing for my footer. These are separated. So just one thing to note as you are adding these in, that they are separated from header and footer. So again, it does give you kind of some information in regards to the pixels there, and again, that JPEG format. And I'm just going to scroll down at this time and click Save. Of course, I get that successfully submitted message or done message there, which is always good to check for. So should you like to put in that letterhead again, provider preferences can come in there and put in those provider preferences. On the admin tab, I do want to show you the ability to create the letter template. So again, I'm just scrolling down here on my admin tab and looking for that letter template, new, and the list of ones that are currently in my system. I'm going to show you some examples of ones that are currently in my system here. So you do have a wide variety of options in terms of what you'd like to utilize this for. So you see here there are some about annual planning meetings, as well as holiday closures or annual events, special events. There's one here about COVID-19 preparedness. So lots of different options. I'll show you a few of these. For example, you have one in regards to COVID-19. So what you're doing here is you're essentially coming up with this template. You have the option to choose between a web template and a Word template, which I'll show you the difference here. You do have the ability to put in the recipient, and that's going to autofill with the recipient's name there. You also have the ability to indicate if you want this to be fixed content, if you want custom content, or both. You have a closing as well as a signature. So here, for example, this would be a letter sending out in regards to safety precautions and CDC guidelines that an agency is putting into practice. So just letting some of those recipients, parents, guardians, relatives be aware of some of those precautions or guidelines that have been put into place. I'll show you a few other examples here, but let's go into creating a new template. You do have some required fields here, that template name, that template type, and then that content type. So the template name, let's say, for example, we want to do one for maybe a request for documentation. Maybe we need some forms or some things filled out by that parent, guardian. So we want to say this is a documentation request. The difference between the Word template and the web template is that this is the web template that you're currently looking at. So you can put in your fixed content, any custom content, that closing, as well as a signature. Whereas the Word template gives you the ability to prepare this letter in a Word document and then add that file in. So we do have a sample document here that you can reference. I'm going to click on that to show you what that looks like. And there, of course, if we have that letterhead, it's going to populate there at the top. And here's some information, again, this sample document that you can use as a guideline. I prefer the web template, but certainly if you have it already in a Word document, you can absolutely use that. I want to give this a subject, so I'm just honestly going to keep it the same as that template name. We're letting them know we're requesting some documentation. You do have a note here at the top letting you know some different keywords you can use for it to populate within the letter. So we have individual, recipient, and user. So for example, if I want to say, dear recipient, I can come in there and say, dear recipient. And what this is going to do is this is going to autofill in this recipient, the individual's contacts. So again, on that individual demographic form, you will be able to indicate different contacts for an individual. And that is going to pull from that individual demographic form. So I can say dear recipient, or maybe dear recipient and individual if I want to use that individual's name as well. And it's just a quick way for the template to autofill with that individual's name, that recipient's name, or the user who is logged in generating the letter. Content type gives me some options here. Again, this is a required field. We'll want to select one of these. So I can do only fixed content, or only custom content, or a combination of both. So for example, the fixed contents might say something along the lines of, our records indicate that we are in need of the following forms. So again, you have that fixed content that will remain the same. So in that letter template, the fixed content will not be editable. However, that custom content will be. So maybe here is where we want to list, the forms that are needed. So this custom content allows for managers or other users that you give access to create that custom content. Maybe we also want to say here, list the due date. So that custom content allows, again, for that kind of specific information in regards to the documentation or the records that are needed. So that custom content will allow the user to put in whatever information they need to here. And again, I'm just providing just some direction and instructions for the users who will be generating this letter in this sentence here. You do have a section for closing, so maybe we want to say, and we can list the mail to address, maybe we want to say the email as well, and the fax number. Perfect. In my signature section, I'm going to do just a closing here, a signature, and rather than signing my name, again, I'm just going to copy and paste from this user up here. I just think it's easier to do a quick copy and paste. And then any user who signed in, it will have that name listed here. Going to pause to make sure we don't have any questions. I don't see any at this time, but Katie, if you see any, just feel free to shout those out. So I do have the ability at this time, certainly can add additional information if needed. I have the option to save this if I want to come back to this, or publish. If we think this form is ready to go, this letter is perfect, we don't need to add anything else, we will click publish. And I get an error message. I'm so glad I did because I forgot to go over this. Content type. So you do have the ability, again, like I mentioned before, to indicate that you want just fixed content, custom, or both. So I'm going to say allow both. The other thing that I always forget about, and I'm glad it gave me an error message so I can go over this with you, is the fixed content. I can make that come before the custom content or after. So depending upon what order you'd like things to go in, you can control that. So I'm going to say I want the fixed content to come before that custom content. So here they're going to see that the records indicate we need these forms, and then the users will be able to list those forms that are needed. So I'm going to go ahead and publish those, and I think there we'll get that successfully published banner there at the top. So at this time, I'm going to go back to the dashboard. Again, I'm just going to show you a few other options for that letter template here. So you see here, here's one about annual planning meeting. So this one is asking this recipient that, the individual is inviting them to their annual meeting, and that custom content is asking for that address as well as that date and time. You notice this is in bold. You do have some formatting options within this fixed and custom content to indicate that you want it to be bolded or things like that, italicized. Now, I don't have the option to edit this once it's published. The only option I have is to discontinue. So certainly if you notice an error or you need to add something else, you can always discontinue this and recreate the letter if needed. Let's see, here's one in regards to a day program, holiday closure. So it's saying it's going to be closed for, whatever holiday on these dates. So again, you can use these letters for a variety of things. If you have agency-wide letters that are going out, this is a great place to store those. This is an individual-based module, so do just want to make that clear in that it won't be possible to send them in bulk, if that makes sense, within the system. So you're just doing it per individual. So again, those templates are found on the admin tab here. And at this time, I'm going to hop on over to my letter section on the right-hand side, just below SCOM. So here I'm going to go into New under Letter. And this is where I'm going to select that template. So again, if you just want to give people access to just the letter module, you don't want them to change or create or discontinue any templates, you can just give them access to this. So I'm going to say that maybe this day program holiday closure, we got some holidays coming up here, and then I'm entering in the individual. So let's say I want to include Charlotte here. So there's Charlotte, and once I select her, then it is populating with that individual contacts that's pulling from that individual demographic form. And if any of you aren't aware where that is, I'd be happy to show you where that is. So there I can select that recipient. You also have the ability to include other staff. So any staff who have access to this individual, if you want to CC them on this, you absolutely can. So I could go in and select other staff as needed. And right now I'm going to go ahead and create this letter. So one thing that you're noticing is that letter date is going to populate to today's date. That recipient detail, again, that's pulling from that individual contacts. So we have Rebecca Baker marked as a contact for Charlotte with that address listed here. That subject and salutation is from that letter template. So there it's including that recipient and that individual. I am going to want to go ahead and select the font size. So if you want this, to be a 12-point font. So here's that body content. So we want to say this is going to be closed for the Christmas holidays. And we can say here, so there's the dates that the day program will be closed for the Christmas holidays. We have that closing as well as that signature. So again, this was marked as user, so my name and title is automatically populating. I also have the ability to include enclosures. So you remember from the letter template that we created for documentation requests. So we wanted some documents. We could go ahead and attach those files of any of the documents needed to be signed or filled out by those recipients. So we could add those files in, whether that's a photo release or media release, some different consent forms, we can enclose those here. We do have the ability to CC others. So if I want to go ahead and click select here, again, this is going to pull from those different users who have access to Charlotte here. So I could select Mia or some of the other individuals should I need to. In addition, we also have this CC Other section. So if, for example, there's someone that's not listed in the account, maybe a nurse or doctor, I could certainly list their name here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save. There's my letter. So it saved that again, today's date with that individual, letting them know, right, these are the dates that it's going to be closed. And I can print this letter or print this with letterhead. So again, if I print this with letterhead, we'll take a look and see how my letterhead looks. Hopefully the format was okay. So there's that letterhead at the top and that footer. And again, I have the ability to download this, to print this, and send that off as needed. Once I'm printing those, sending those out, I can go ahead and mark this as sent. So that's one thing that you have within this letter module is the ability to mark this as a sent letter saying we did send this out to Charlotte's relatives and parents and guardians and things like that, and we marked it as sent within our system. I'm going to pause just to make sure there aren't any questions, and I'm not seeing any at the moment. If you have any, again, feel free to put those in the questions box. We are happy to answer those if you have some. So I'm going to go back to my dashboard at this point. So again, going through that letter and selecting new, that was one of the things I mentioned with it being more of a individual-based module. So again, here where I'm going through and adding in an individual, let's say, for example, Brian. I'm only doing this one person. So here I'm just saying that I'm sending this to Brian and his relative Valerie. So this is where it's individual based in that you'll be doing these one at a time. And then again, I can create that letter, include that font size, list those forms. And I can add in those files down here. I'm going to go back to the dashboard at this point. I do want to show you a report associated with this module. So I'm going to hop into my agency reports at this time and go to the report library and view. I'm going to search for the letter. And there is a comprehensive report, so I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this. And here I'm seeing the IDF, the individual form IDs, as well as recipients from those staff, who sent that, when it was created and sent. And I prefer to export this information to Excel. I think it's a bit easier to read, so you can absolutely export that information to Excel should you have that export to Excel role. And it opened up on my other screen here, so let me pull that over. So here I'm seeing basically what was marked as sent, maybe what's just put in as a draft. So here I can see this meeting invitation is still in a draft. It hasn't been marked as sent. So this is a quick and easy report that you can run to ensure that it has been marked as sent within the system if it was sent out to those recipients. I'm going to go back to the dashboard at this point and hop back into my admin tab. I'm going to hop on in again to my list here. So I've seen a wide variety of letter templates put into the system. Special events that occur. You can absolutely create templates for any special events. For example, I put in one as an example of a picnic. So it's saying that, it's time for the annual picnic. And then, custom content is asking for, users to put in where it's going to be held that year, directions, what people need to bring, what's going to be provided, a menu for the picnic, the weather forecast. So a great place if you guys are sending out letters for special events or requesting documentation, or even, for example, I know with supported employment, there have been individuals who were selected to be involved in supported employment, but they hadn't responded to any calls or emails. So you could send a letter saying, we've been attempting to contact you. Do we have your correct contact information? So wide variety of options in regards to these letters, meeting invitations, special events, documentation requests. And with that enclosure, you do have the ability to indicate what documentation or information is needed from that recipient and individual if needed. I'm going to go back to the dashboard. I don't think I see any questions. Let me just double check. Doesn't look like there are any questions. So I'm going to scroll all the way down and go to our help and support page. So I do just want to show you, it's opening up a new tab. Again, it's just support.therapservices.net. And I'm going to hover over this user guides and hop into the letter module. So everything we went over today, we do have access on this letter module, this help and support site. So creating those letter templates or the list, as well as adding in that letterhead. And should you need to, there is, additional recorded webinars about this, should you like to check those out. But if you, want to go back to reference this information that we went over today, you absolutely can. I'm just going to pause for just a moment just to make sure. Katie, I'm not seeing any questions. Do you see any?
Nope, no questions.
All right, perfect. Well, that's pretty much everything I did want to show you in regards to the letter module, creating those templates, and then of course adding in those letters as it pertains to specific individuals, and then marking them as sent and running any that report that's needed. So if there aren't any other questions, we will wrap up a bit early today. We do appreciate you guys hopping on our webinar today, and we hope you have a fantastic day. Thanks, everyone.